We are live. Hello, 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 everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome to our conversation tonight about a topic why I don't talk about men being abused. But the question is, do you? And so, for those of you who don't know me, I am Andrea Merriman, and I will be speaking today with my good friend Ava. Give us just a moment as I take care of some technical things and get this shared out. So, if you are a domestic violence advocate or anyone that works with victims, please share this out. Bring your friends in. Um, Ava, you should be able to share it from my room, my page. If you know, it's on my business page and my strength, my line. So you should be able to get it from both of them.
Okay.
Should be live now. See if you can pick it up. I don't know why. Oh, can you hear me? I'm sorry. It should
I
be
do.
it should be better now. I made it public. For some reason, these stream yards have been going to only me, and now I'm having to share them out to people.
Okay.
So I'm put it on my story,
Let's see what we can get accomplished here.
send it to a group. Let's send it there.
Let me not leave here.
So
Okay, where this come from?
what's that?
Why did I get this? Somebody sent me a code to reset my password. That'll be a negative.
Right.
Okay.
No, we won't be
We
doing
are
that.
live.
I know, and we are live, and that just tells people what to do. No, we will not be setting passwords when we didn't
Absolutely.
initiate. No,
That will
we
not
will
be
not. That is too funny.
just goes to show just how quick the thing of security can go left.
Right.
No, and we are live, and that just tells people what to do. No, we will not be setting passwords when we didn't
Ava,
initiate.
is that your TV or your phone?
It was. It was.
If you are joining us, please let us know where you're joining us from so we can talk. We're doing StreamYard. You may have to click the link so we can see your name. I just shared it so many places. I'm not sure where you're from, so um, if you'll let us know. Let's get started.
Alrighty, all right.
So we're going to have a conversation around domestic violence and the things that I do, what Ava does, and we're going to have a whole conversation. So bring your pencil, your paper, your water, your tea, your wine, whatever it is you're drinking, and let's get started. So, for those of you who may not know me, I am Andrea Merriman. I am your creative harmony coach. And I do this because I empower leaders, just like some of you that may have been through domestic violence, with tools to process the pain, find the voice, and build a movement to eradicate domestic violence. Since 2014, when my daughter was murdered by her brother in law, I created the Jennifer Y. Merriman Help Program, a program that empowers women to escape and avoid toxic relationships. Since then, I've started certifying and licensing leaders to facilitate this program. And one of the keys to my success is understanding the pain of loss and the power in resiliency. See, I grew up in a loving family. They supported me. They supported me when Jennifer was murdered, which is why I am on a mission to eradicate domestic violence. And what I love most about what I do is knowing that I am helping another mother not bury a child. When I'm not working, which is real far, and I'm relaxing. I love tea, um, which is why we still host our tea parties. And so I'm coming here today because if you recalled at the beginning of this, I said that I'm empowering women to escape and avoid toxic relationships. And every time that I speak, every time I go live, every time I have a conversation, somebody wants to ask me, well, what about the men? Men are being abused too. What about the men? So tonight, I want to have a conversation about that. But before I do, I want to introduce to you one of my great friends, Ava Ross, Ava Love. Hello, Ava, and please let them know who you are and what you do.
Yes, hello, everyone. My name is Ava Ross. They call me Love, as you know. I am a domestic violence impact and social resource expert, as well as the founder of Tabla Rasa Domestic Violence. I work closely in the community by assisting individuals with understanding about domestic violence, how it happens, and we focus also on we do consultations separately for myself with domestic violence in the workplace. Excuse me. For Tabla Rasa, we do a focus where we help individuals who have experienced domestic violence to escape, heal, rebuild, and thrive. Our focus is to really help them come from and have a uninterrupted process throughout the experience with us to make sure that they become independent. I don't want to say self-sufficient, because self-sufficient means that we don't need anybody. We don't depend on anything from anyone, and we all need each other. So we say independent to help them become independent and self-reliant, as well as free from abuse. So that's what I do. I'm also in the community, always in the trenches. Love to be in the background, but forced to the front. So that's where I'm gonna put it. But if there's anything you need, always reach out. I'm here.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, and thank you for jumping on here with me at the last minute as we have this conversation. So, what I want to do first is I always like to just give a quick little 1 minute tribute to Jennifer because without the tragic event that happened to her, I wouldn't be doing what I do. So, here we go.
This is a tribute to Jennifer. Jennifer was a 17-year-old that lost her life to domestic violence. Jennifer was intelligent, respectful, and learned to live her life to the fullest. She danced by the beat of her own music, inspiring everyone she met. Jennifer embraced reality with a humorous and empathetic attitude, empathizing with those in need. Her legacy to help families continues with the Jennifer Y. Merriman Help Program, a program that offers hope, empowerment, life skills, and preventive methods against domestic violence. If you or someone you know are ready to rebuild your life, reach out at jymhelpprogram.com/referral form. We are ready to help you.
I always like to do that just to remind me and those that are here with us why I do what I do. So, as I again start this, Ava, um, as I spoke before, my main objective is working with women because that's what I know. Through my nonprofit, of course, we help everyone that goes through, but my program is was built for women that are going through domestic violence because that is what I know. And so when we look at first, let's look at what domestic violence is. And I like to do this at the beginning of everything because I still find that there are so many people who really don't understand what domestic violence look like. And I have people that come through that still say, I'm not sure. So I'll always start with what domestic violence is not. Domestic violence is not something that only happens when a person is angry. It's not something that was caused by drugs. The personality was there before the drugs started. It wasn't caused by the gun laws, although those are instigators. And it's not something that happened all of a sudden. Domestic violence is a power and control issue. There's signs before that abuse. The domestic violence is destroying our families and our communities. And domestic violence, the will of God. So when we look at those things, we look at relationships that are being hurt in our communities, and that's why we do what we do. Ava, how would you like to be worked out of a job?
When it's coming to domestic violence, I would love it.
You'd love to go find another job, wouldn't you?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So just
Most
going in
definitely.
a little bit about what you have come with, how people perceive domestic violence. Do you have any more what it is, or help us to understand a little more of what domestic violence is?
Well, I think one of the biggest things, like you stated, is that people think that it has some type of specifics to it, and it doesn't. It doesn't. The most important thing to know is that anything that doesn't add to you positively and that takes away from you, controls you, um, is not love. It is control. It is, you can't be controlled of and taken out of yourself of who you are. Domestic violence, too many individuals think that, if, like you said, if they're inebriated, that's the biggest issue. If they are angry, then that's the reason why. And the reason why is because that individual is who they are. They lack control of their own selves, but they try to control everyone else. That's not love. That's control. That's domestic violence. Someone who downs you, don't have respect for you, constantly badger you to make you believe that you are who they believe that you are. That's abuse.
You know, and it's important to understand that we're saying that that person doesn't have control of themselves, and they try to change that by controlling you, thinking if they can control you, then they don't have to control them.
Absolutely.
And so many times I see people come back and not understanding that, thinking, well, it only happens when there's extenuating circumstances. And then, but when they sit and think about it, they realize that that personality trait, some of the signs were there before it happened. And as we go to look at um, some of the statistics, and one of the things that I had come up and was reading not too long ago was a study that was done by, I think it was Lancet.com. And they did a study of 161 countries. And so they got responses from about 2 million women. Now, this was done in 2018. And when you go back to look at the statistics from that, it talks about that And so they did this for women 15 and older that had been in relationships. So it says it covers about 90% of the global population of women and girls over 15. 27% of those that had been partnered had been experienced some type of abuse. 13% had been part of that experienced that abuse within the 12 months from the time they took the survey. And it says that 24% of young girls by the time they between 15 and 19 have experienced it at least once since the age of 15, meaning 1 out of 4 women. And 38 to 50% of the murders of women committed are done by an intimate partner. And that was in 2018. So we know that since COVID, the prices, Lord help us. Yeah, the prices we paid, but the numbers increased. And when I say that,
True.
Ava, a lot of people come back and they say, well, what about the men?
Hmm.
And I know that men weren't included in that survey, but the average says that 1 out of 6 men have experienced domestic violence.
Mm-hmm.
And do I help men? Of course I would if somebody came to me. Is that my target? No, it's not. And the reason is, first, before I do that, Ava, what is the percentage of men that you have that come through tabula rasa domestic violence?
Let's say maybe about good 10%. Let's say this: come through or come through, because there's a difference. Some will reach out and not follow through, and some will follow through. So it varies. I would say maybe 10%, but maybe less than that follow through. Maybe about 2 or 3% of those individuals will follow through.
So, of that 10% and the 2 or 3%, do you collect information or statistics on who the abuser is?
That I will not answer.
Well, I mean, this is just, I figured since it was a nonprofit, those were statistics you turned into the state. That's why I asked. But if not, then
Yes,
okay.
well, there's
I
certain,
mean, since it's a
right, certain things.
nonprofit, I figured those were government statistics, is the reason I asked. But if not, that's
Right.
fine. I'm just asking. Just,
Mm-hmm.
hey, Dwayne. We know that most men that are abused don't want to talk. Yes, we know that men that are
Absolutely.
abused don't want to talk. It is one of the things that is a shame because our society has allowed these men to be put in, um, I say homes, because we know that 60% of the children who witness domestic violence become either the abuser or abused. And it doesn't matter which one because both are able to be abused.
Mhm.
But when we look at that, we also know that if we make the environment to where we're not helping our children process the pain they've been through, then that's going to happen. But my only thing is, I don't talk about it as much. One, because I don't know much about it. I'm not a man. Can I help them? Yes. Do I know what I do? Um, the men that I have dealt with, I actually send them to men that I know that work with men. But my whole reason around this is that when I was called to do what I do, and God called me to create the programs that I created, He told me to help the mothers. I actually wanted to help the children. I wanted to work with teenagers because Jennifer was a teenager. And one of the things that she liked doing is she always wanted to help teenagers from dysfunctional families. And so I thought that to keep her legacy on, that I would work with teens. But God told me no. He said that working with teens is okay, but if we want to heal the family, one of the things we have to do is heal the mothers. The mothers have to have a way to heal because they can't teach our children because they're, I believe, by nature, the nurturers. If they can't nurture themselves and heal themselves from their childhood trauma, their abuse, the um, victimization that they have been through, then they can't teach our children anything but that
Yeah,
same cycle.
but in that being said, the thing of it is, it comes back to we've healed the women, and then you still are dealing with the men because, mind you, that man is going from one woman to another woman. That's one woman. So if you can deal with that man who has dealt with multiple women that he is actually affected, then we're actually kind of grabbing the queen bees per se out of the nest.
Okay, okay. And that's true. So, but here's my thing. I believe that my understanding is when God called me to do something, on the other flip side of that, he's calling somebody else to do something else.
Absolutely. And that's just not your lane, but it doesn't negate the fact of what the need still is. There are men that need the help, and as we say, many of them they don't go forward with it. They may begin to talk, but then they pull back quicker than the women. They close down, they shut up. They're afraid. They're afraid of being considered not a man, weak, because of the simple fact that can no woman beat a man up. These are the things that they get. Can't a man, a female can't rape a man, but that's not true.
That's
And
not
these
true.
days, the
That's not
reality of it is that the women are becoming very even more of the aggressor these days.
right. And they really are. They are coming more the aggressor. They are learning to, and especially those that have been abused,
Absolutely.
because they pull up the idea that nobody's going to hurt me again. I'm going to give what I got. I'm going to be. That is so true, and I'm not denying any of that.
Mhm.
And one of the things that Dwayne had put in the chat, he says, but as advocates, can we evolve? Can our programs change with the demographics? And absolutely. I believe absolutely. Because I've had men go through my program. So although I say these things with with what do I want to call it? Sternness, or this is, like you said, this is my lane. I just wanted to put out, I don't deny that men are being abused.
Right. I mean, and that's the thing. I mean, but no one talks about it. No one really wants to have that conversation. Um, no one is really telling the men that, hey, someone is here for you as well, that you can get help. There are resources. There are a plethora of resources that are available for men who are victims of domestic violence. So we have to be more willing to have that conversation, put that information out, to be able to let them know that those services are there. I mean, everyone knows for a female or woman that those services are available to them. But where do they go as being a man? And when they lose everything, where do they turn for the help and the resources to be able to reestablish themselves?
True, true, true. So how do we find the people that are talking about domestic violence that has been the male has been the abuser?
When you say, how do you find? I mean, there's conversations going on.
I
I've
know,
been
but I'm
in.
saying that but you said there's so little of it, the information is not getting out. What can we do as advocates to say, hey, there's help for you too?
The same way we put the information out for women, it's the same way we should put the information out for men. Those resources that are for men as well. How do they get the information? Where do they go? Circulating the information, educating the community. It goes back to the same thing we're doing for the women. It's the same thing that needs to be done for the men, providing those resources.
So, and even well, I'm saying this because when I see domestic violence, you always see the female with the abused face, with the man's hand over her face, around her neck, pulling her
Mm-hmm.
hair, and which we all know that physical is just a piece of what domestic violence looks like. But that's the visual
Mm-hmm.
thing that people notice. But I don't see the man being choked, stabbed, hit, or even in their literature that the man is being abused.
Once
So why
again,
would he feel comfortable going to that space?
once again, is educating, educating the community, informing the community. It goes back to the same thing. So we have to begin to rewrite the narrative ourselves, as in putting that information out there. We have to do that. I mean, even when we look at a lot of the larger nonprofit organizations against domestic violence, that their narrative is the woman. They put some information out there. There's little information that trickles in about men who experience domestic violence. But once again, it is not widely circulated as it is for the women.
True. And that's why I wanted to have this conversation. And that's why I brought you on and told you to, share the things that you have done in your agency and how these things have impacted men in your area. And to just bring up the statistical piece of, as Dwayne had said, is that men that are abused don't want to talk about it. They think that it
Absolutely.
makes them less of a man. If you were a man, how did you let that woman do this? If you were a man, how did you? No, I was a man is the reason I didn't beat her down. Because the
And
whole
that's true.
conversation would have been different if he had hit back.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's one of the conversations. I think once again, um, the question isn't how, because we're doing the same thing. When I deal with male victims, I'm dealing with them in the same mannerism. It's still having that, you have to let them know that you are non-judgmental, that that you are being there, that you're there for them. A lot of people are afraid, whether it's a male or a woman, they don't want to talk about it. It's personable to them. It's degrading, it takes away from so many things, especially looking at an individual, depending on what type of position that they hold with their job. Is this going to affect it? Is their job going to find out about it? What's going to happen if they do? How are they going to look at them? Are they going to lose the seniority or the respect that they had? There's a lot of things that keep them from coming to be able to continue to move forward with getting that help and those resources to say, hey, I need help.
Right.
But once again, it's making that environment comfortable and that individual where they are able to be able to communicate freely with you. So once again, I think when you say you're looking at a man is a man and a woman is a woman, but the thing that lies here is they're going through the same thing. They're different individuals. They process differently. Everyone processes differently. You know, you can have two women, and I guarantee those women do not process that trauma in the same manner. So the question is that even for a man, you know, what is it that he needs? He needs that same comfortability, that same level of discretion, that same sincerity and openness and non-judgmental environment to be able to say, hey, I'm experiencing this and I don't know what to do. People think I'm crazy. People call me a punk, you know, because when I talk to my buddies about it, they keep telling me, no, that can't happen to you. You just let that girl do whatever. That's not the case. And we need to just make sure that they feel secure and that they are informed, just as we do women, that they are not alone, that there are plenty other men that have experienced the same thing, and to be able to give them that help. And also being able to partner with them, another male, whereas though they will feel safe with communicating and not having that woman there because they're feeling like, hey, you're a female. I don't know how I may feel about, you know, being open, or even just the trauma from the whole piece from them themselves. A lot of times women can't deal with other men after experience trauma. So why would we put another woman in front of another man, in front of a man, when he has experienced trauma? So it's being able to provide those resources, the information, and the safety for them, just as well as the females, so that they can be able to freely open and express what they've been through.
Yes, yes, yes. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And now we have a male perspective on this. Hello, Dwayne. Thank you for joining us at this last minute. I appreciate you. As always, I appreciate you and what you do. And I was reading your comment about how men don't want to talk about being abused and advocates evolving. But first, please share everyone who you are and what you do.
Hi, I'm C. Dwayne Hennet. I am a domestic violence advocate. I am the author of The Ripple Effect, The Lasting Effects of Domestic Violence, and I do advocate for all domestic violence survivors or victims.
Thank you, thank you, thank you for joining. And so give us your perspective on this. About
Well, my perspective on this is, let me give you a little background. I grew up in a two-family home. Both my mother and my father were married for over 20 some odd years. I have 3 sisters and 1 brother. I never saw domestic violence. Never saw domestic violence. Didn't know what domestic violence was until I actually started living in the city of Durham, and I started working for a government agency that had a domestic violence task force. So I started seeing all these, when we had files that come in, I started seeing, all this thing that was going on in my community. So I was just like, wow, this is really, really astonishing that this is going on for people just seeking, resources, seeking help to get out of a domestic violence relationship. And like I said, I just saw it was an issue ongoing in my community. So I just wanted to advocate for it as much as I could. Now, me having no experience in domestic violence didn't mean I couldn't advocate. I did my homework. I did my research on how it affected the community. And when I wrote the book, overwhelmingly, my book is, pretty much geared toward women. But me advocating more and me being out in the community more, I found out that a lot of men are abused or have been abused, and that a lot of men just don't talk. So I changed my perspective on it, on how I viewed it, on how I viewed domestic violence in the community. So that's why I was saying what I was saying, is because, like I said, I changed. And if anybody's read my book, it's hardcore. It's hardcore in favor of the women. It is. It truly is. I I didn't know what I was writing as far as that. Not to say that I didn't know what I was doing, because like I said, I did the research, but you know, in doing the research, you didn't see a lot of men that was coming out and talking about. So I didn't have the data or the evidence. But since I wrote it and then got back out in the community and started advocating more, you see a whole lot of people that are just not going to talk about it. Or you see what toxic relationships are, which can have abusive parts in it.
Thank you for sharing that. And I know, because since I've started, I bet you years ago, and we've had conversations about those same things. So that's why I wanted asked you if you would join us, because I know how you have moved into different places, worked and done a lot of great things. And just wanted to get your perspective on how you've evolved and the things that you've learned. And yes, we can evolve. And yes, I've had men, as I've told you when we talked about it, go through my help program. And because it's just a blueprint for domestic violence, although it's geared toward women, as Ava just so elegantly told us, if we put those same pieces together for every victim, it's going to look different whether they're male or female anyway. Because we're going to, one, start by believing, which is the big thing that people don't want to do, and more so don't want to do with men. And start by believing what they're saying, because you guys have done enough work to know that some of this stuff you couldn't even make up. If you sit down, you couldn't even make it up. And wonder how they did. How that person that carried out that much pain in somebody thought about it. So I just wanted to have this conversation, because I'm always asked today, and I do understand that I need to put some more male statistics in my presentations. And I usually say at the beginning, this is why, but just staying in my lane, because there's certain things that I do and don't. Both of you I've sent and gave referrals to, because I know of things that you work on more so than I do. So I just wanted to have this quick conversation and have it out there, and to just really talk about it, because it is okay for men to say, hey, this is a bad relationship. And the problem of it is, although there are some men that are going through the physical aspect of it, most of it is psychological or mental issues that they're having to deal with. And because if we trace that back, they probably went through some of those same things in their childhood with one of the key component females in their life. And they were saying, okay, this is how women act, and thinking that it's okay until it gets to the extreme, because perhaps the person they're having a relationship with, or the person that they are marrying, doesn't love them or doesn't have as much vested in them as the person they grew up with. So,
well, let me say this. I'm gonna tell you this. One of the number one abusive traits that women do to men, and they don't think that they're being abusive, but it is women stalk men. Okay. They stalk them. They invite their girlfriends to do it with them, and they bring harm to them. They tear up their stuff. They vandalize things, and this has been going on for years, centuries. And the thing of it is that most of the time, 9 times out of 10, it's not reported. It's not reported. You know, you had women go get somebody else, take them, go ring the door, go in there, find the information, and then give it to me. You know, we have to know, once again, those boundaries. And like I said, women have to understand, because as they become the aggressor a lot of times in situations, now pushing forward, the men are kind of stuck because these things have been going on for years. But guess what? No one ever identified or correlated to this is abuse. This is an abusive behavior.
And I'm glad you brought that up, Ava, because I can remember growing up in the neighborhood I grew up in, and it wasn't nothing to see a female on some Friday or Saturday night after she done had a few drinks out there screaming and hollering at some guy, slashing his tires, breaking out car windows, and everybody thought that was okay. Go ahead, Dwayne.
But see, that's the kind of behavior that men don't realize that that's abusive. That's abusive behavior. Men, a lot of men don't realize that, hey, she's slashing your tires, that she cutting up your clothes, she doing stuff like that. She's stalking you through Facebook, phone calls, and stuff like that. That's abuse. A lot of men don't really see that or don't really contribute that to being in a domestic violence relationship. So the changing the mindset on how we view relationships and what a healthy relationship it should be. That's that. Like I said, when I got back out in the community, I changed my whole perspective on that, because instead of being reactive, I was being proactive. I started telling people more about healthy relationships, how healthy relationships are supposed to be. If these things are going on in your relationship, that is not a healthy relationship, and you need to get out, because it can turn worse. One of the things I always say is I'm a pretty big guy, but there are bigger men than me that's in the ground dead right now.
Absolutely. I mean, think of the number of women who have killed their boyfriends. I mean, even recently, there is an alarming number of women who have literally dismembered.
And just think about this too. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but just think about this too, is that some of the cases that this happens to, they're not even cataloged as domestic violence. Absolutely. Like the numbers don't even show that. Like when police report to it and stuff like that and find out things are going on, they don't put this as a domestic violence relationship.
Well,
that's true.
Some of them have not, but they have now begun to label them as domestic violence relationships. And I have literally seen cases change from assault to domestic violence lately. So they are actually trying to make some changes. It's slow coming, but it is happening.
It's slow. Yeah.
Yes.
And then North Carolina is a whole lot slower. Trust me.
Yes.
Believe me.
see, you up north. You up north. It's a little right.
No, well, I'm up north, but I deal with cases all over. So, but like I said, everyone have their own separate issues. But once again, it's changing, it's happening. But at the same time, is it happening fast enough? No, it really is not. It really is not. And it doesn't help that each state decides, every year, every now and then, that they want to go in and change, the domestic violence laws,
and what it looks help. Like.
Yeah,
absolutely. So,
and the piece of it I think about when we talk about this, and was always saying, I don't say it as much, I talk about eradicating, but just disrupting the normalcy. A lot of the things that we talk about, especially when we talk about the violence against our men, is normalcy. We think that, oh, she just extra. Oh, she just, she just a mess. And we dismiss it instead of putting it in the space of that's abuse. That's not healthy. It shouldn't be happening. And let's do something about it. So I think the whole piece of it is the educating. And as he said, even educating our law enforcement of what domestic violence is, and educating our communities one of my big things that I have been working on is educating our churches. It's time for them
Mm.
to start to
Yes.
break into the fight.
Yes.
It's time for them to say no more. It's time for them to speak up in their churches to those that they know are being abusive, and not looking at whatever the reason. I dare say, I hear it from people, but they're losing constituents and money and ties. Okay, so but what does it profit a man? If they keep the money but lose all the souls of the people there. So
Yeah.
it's time for us to just say this is no longer acceptable as normal, and just get out there and say it, and know, my job is to know who to go to when men are involved, because I don't do a lot of service with them, although I'm capable of it. But if I'm a firm believer of people also being in their niche when it comes to working in any environment. And so it's not that I don't think men are abused, because I know that they are. Um, I had a male in my uh, conference in 2019 who spoke out for the first time in his life, and just kind of set straight a lot of things that people didn't know about, why he had done a lot of things in his life, and the abuse that he had put up with for years and years. And a lot of it was because the church told him to go back. You're a man, you're supposed to be the head of your house, you're supposed to run things, you need to go back and show her who the man is, you're supposed to talk to God about X, Y, and Z. And that man was kept bondage in a relationship that was not healthy for him, the kids, or anybody in the household, because he was following what the advice of the church.
Ooh, well, let's just say this. Some of the things, as much as we love the word and love God, a lot of times people self-interpret what the meaning is.
Hmm.
To be able to self-soothe, to be able to do the things that they desire to do and not what they should do. I think this is the case here, is that as we begin to heal within ourselves and have the complete understanding and education as to what is a healthy relationship. And the truth of the matter is that God has already gave us a whole format that he has laid out to us to what love is. I believe if we begin to really understand that format and first begin to love on ourselves and not beat ourselves up, not abuse ourselves and damage us to be able to give to somebody else, because we are self-sabotaging when we want everybody else to be good, but yet we lay ourselves down as a sacrificial lamb to do so. Um, we have to first begin with self. That's the issue. When we start taking that accountability and realizing, hey, what do I need to heal from? And accepting healing. People don't like looking in the mirror. Truth and transparency is what I always focus on. And we have to be truthful of what we go through, what it look like, and not be afraid to share it. When we share our hurts, our pains, we never know who else is struggling with that same thing. We just have to be willing to be open and be honest, about what we are experiencing and what we're going through. We have come into a age of lack of communication and getting to the point where we're so evasive of truth, because everything is built on this false reality, through social media. No one communicates. No one is truthful about what they're doing and how they're feeling. How you doing and how you feeling, the two totally different things. Let's check up on you. Let's be honest so that we can be able to start a pattern, a movement of truth, so that we can be real about what we're experiencing, what we're going through, and then we can begin to have real conversations.
Agree. I agree. I agree. And as we look at our church and we look at what we're doing, God gave me, he said that our churches need to become a stronghold of hope. They need to be a safe haven. They need to be a place that people can self identify and say, this is a problem I'm having, and they know how to safely respond. See, a lot of times they don't know how to safely respond. Even our and so to do that, I think there need to be an advocate, and there need to be, and I've got a whole list of things that I say that God downloaded to me in a way that I'll do days, but just understanding that there needs to be an understanding, there needs to be an understanding in the church, a safety mechanism, understanding who they can give people conversation with. If they don't have advocates in the church, then where their local advocates are. Can they call their local domestic violence agency and say, hey, can you send someone here? I've been in apartment complexes or housing authorities or places that have called and said, hey, I have someone here filling out an application. Can you come and talk to this person? I have a person in my rental agency. Can you come talk to this person? And if secular people can do that, why can't our churches?
Well, once again, it comes
Well,
back to, as you said, the church. Well, go ahead, Dwayne.
I'll say this about the church, and I grew up in the church, and I love church, and my mother was a evangelist. But I'll say this: a lot of people in the church don't evolve. They don't evolve themselves. They still preaching in they're still preaching in the old Bible, in the Old Testament. I had asked, someone that was in the church community, preacher. I asked them if they knew what the last commandment was. They said no. The last commandment, for everybody who don't know, is love. It's love. Jesus came. He says that's the old law. I come to bring you the new law for this. And what Jesus says is love. Love everybody. Then that's the basis of it. They're still preaching off the Old Testament and old archaic ways and stuff like that. One of the things that a lot of men preach in the church about husbands and wives is that wives, you must submit to your husbands. They never go further and far as that and say that there's a scripture down below that also said, husbands, love your wives even as Christ also loved the church. I've been to plenty of churches. I have hardly ever heard one preacher go further down and preach that. They always love to start right from there. Wives, submit yourself to your husbands. But see, that's the point. That's why I say we can evolve. The church can evolve. It's just that you have a lot of people that aren't, either don't educate themselves enough, or either just don't want to evolve because they're set in their own way.
Right. But they're going to be held accountable for some of these things too.
They are. They are. I mean, a lot of people should hold them a lot more accountable. One thing that I tell people now when I go and speak to churches and stuff like that is if your church does not have any programs in here for domestic violence, why are you going there? Like, what are they doing in the community? Like, this tells you that they're not concerned about you. They're not concerned about the children. They're not concerned about what's going on in the community. Because believe it or not, one domestic violence issue affects your whole community.
It does.
Think about if a murder went on in your community, how bad this affects your community from domestic violence.
And it does. And I'll tell you, in the night my daughter, so the night my daughter was murdered, since they could not find him, there was a manhunt, which affected not only my community, but your community too, 2 hours away, because everything was shut down. The buses were shut down. Amtrak was shut down. I know that as a fact because I met a man 3 years after that, and he was talking about what I do. He said, I was working at the train station that night when we had to stop the trains and shut it down. I know that because they found him in High Point in that area, and places that have been shut down. I know that because my friend in Indiana called me and said it was on the news there.
Mm.
So many communities and families were impacted. I know that because I met a person a couple years ago in a women's event, and we found out we lived in the same neighborhood. And she said she had just moved here that week, and she was so afraid since then because she wasn't sure what kind of community she had moved in. And she was so glad she had met me to understand more of what had happened. So all of that affected people, not to mention all the other stuff that went on. But that's just some of the things that I know of people that were affected. Think of all the people that I don't know about,
Mm.
and all the people who saw it, or in the communities, or all the people. I mean, even the fact that because of who she was and the things that she had done in her life, we had her in service at the local college so that we could stream it on Ustream, so her friends in Australia and Japan and all these other places could watch the service. Look at all those communities that were affected, and all those children that had to go get therapy because they lost a good friend. So when we say that domestic violence is a personal thing, we're lying. When we're saying what goes on in the house stays in the house, we're lying to ourselves. It affects not only our family, but other families that come near it, and like you said, in our community. So it's affecting the whole churches. We have to take out the normalcy of what's going on and looking at the whole piece of it, and understanding there's a lot of education that needs to be done. And the key thing is to get these children and our families to understand what healthy looks like.
Hmm.
We can tell you that's not healthy, you need to leave, that's not right, you need to go. But if I don't give you an education of what healthy looks like, and we can no longer turn on the TV and find out what healthy looks like, because they're broadcasting and making unhealthy the thing. They're normalizing the unhealthy. It's a mess. It's a mess. It's a mess.
I'll say
Well,
that that's definitely an issue in the community. Well, not just in the community, just in general. Um, I don't watch rom-coms because I think they promote, toxic relationship, toxic behavior. A real relationship, you don't have a lot of back and forth. There's an breaking up, get back together. We break up again, you get back together. Me going through another person and then come back together. That's not promoting a healthy relationship
right.
to me. So I don't watch any rom-coms. One of the shows that I used to watch, which was one of my favorite shows, I don't watch anymore, and I used to watch it 10 years ago, and they aired an episode of on it back again, and I was just like, this was a
I
bad
like it.
domestic violence relationship. It was snapped. It was
I
snapped.
never watched it.
I I used to love watching that show. And then they aired an episode where this guy was I think he was from another state. I think it was from South Carolina, and his girlfriend was in Georgia. And they talked, all the families was there, and they were talking about how beautiful their relationship was, and da da this and da da that. And they came home, and it was the day that he was moving in with her. It was actually her birthday, with her birthday cake and stuff like that. Well, he had a cousin that asked him to move. So he goes up and tells the girlfriend, I'm gonna have my friend move, and then I'm gonna come back and celebrate with you. So he comes back and get in the car, and he tells his cousin, he was like, she stabbed me. She stabbed me. She stabbed the man. They took him to the hospital. He died. They came back upstairs and they showed the apartment. She had took the knife that was in the birthday cake that she had cut it with, and she had ripped up all the furniture, and that was the murder weapon that she used to kill that man. Was the knife that was out of her birthday cake. And They tell the story that when she went to court, like I said, it ruins a lot of relationship because you had these two families that were trying to advocate for their person, and it just made everything a mess because she went to jail, which she was an aspiring lawyer, attorney, so her career is gone. And they had, the family of the guy that had died, his community is gone because they said they lost because they said he was a wonderful person. So, like I said, you've got two families, two communities affected by domestic violence.
Yeah, that's so true. And that's how it goes. That's how it goes.
You are so on point with that. I know people used to love watching that show. What was that? Cheaters? Same thing.
Yeah,
People we would run,
yeah.
and they got canceled because of that, because somebody actually got killed. And it's
They brought it back.
crazy. Did they bring it back?
They did bring it back, and they brought it back with the worst cheater of all. I'm not sure if y'all know who. I'm not sure if y'all watch Love and Hip Hop, but there was a guy that was on there. He was a serial cheater. His name was Peter Pankey, or called Peter
Lord, I
Guns,
watched that
or
many
Peter
years ago.
Guns, and he's the host of it now.
Oh gosh. Well, he should be able to tell more about it, huh?
Yeah.
But see, once again, you see the switch in the representation. You take someone who is that person. We don't know if he changed or what's going on in his life. I don't know. I don't even watch this stuff anymore. But to literally take that individual, I mean, that really juggled two women, two lives, and expected them to come together and accept it.
Two women, 5 kids. Well, no, actually more than that because he had some outside of that. So yeah, it was a little more than that. Yeah.
Yeah. But see, once again, these are the things. Accepted. Oh, that's a whole nother topic.
Yeah, and I don't want to hold y'all too long. I appreciate y'all. We've been here an hour, y'all. And is there anything y'all want to leave our audience with, people who may catch this on the replay, this conversation, anything you have left to say, Ava?
I just say this: if you're a man or a woman, it does not matter. Whoever you are, don't be ashamed. Do not be ashamed of what you experienced. It was not your fault. And reach out to someone who will listen to you, who will have compassion to be able to provide you with the proper resources and services to get you what you need. It only takes for you to speak up to somebody to be connected. So reach out to me, reach out to Andrea, reach out to Dwayne. Someone will be able to assist you and help you get where you need to get to from a better place, but free from abuse.
Thank you, Ava. Thank you. And Dwayne?
If I want to leave anything, I probably would say this: if you see something, say something. Um, See something, say something, and don't suffer in silence. Like I said, we talk about men, we talk about women, we talk about children. There's a lot of stigma. There's a lot of shame that goes along with domestic violence, and it shouldn't be. Everybody that experienced domestic violence or a toxic relationship should be open, or should feel open to expressing that they need help or want to find resources, and there shouldn't be a shame behind it. Um, so anybody that's out there that's listening, that's an advocate, that has somebody in a domestic violence, or that knows somebody that's in domestic violence, or that you may be going through domestic violence yourself, that this is not something that you should be ashamed of. You can come to other people, and there are advocates that's out here that want to help.
Thank you. Thank you. And I just wanted to thank everyone that are listening and joining in and understanding, as they both said, that this is domestic violence has no boundaries. And so we need to have some, and to understand that it's okay to self-disclose. It's okay to talk about it. It's okay to find someone, even if you don't have someone in your circle now that would you feel that'll believe you. Go find someone believe you that can get you help. Reach out to either one of us and just say, hey, I need help, and one of us will be you I've sent messages to Ava and Dwayne in the middle of the night, and I'll do it again. And I'm sure either one of them will too. So just reach out and thank each and every one of you for joining us. As we talked about men and abuse. Bye.
Bye bye. Thank you guys.
Bye bye. Thank you.